In the Gaza Strip, 2 Israeli citizens are still being held captive by Hamas, along with the remains of 2 soldiers. Avera Mengistu is one of those hostages, an Ethiopian of Israeli descent. Today at the UN, an Israeli of Ethiopian descent. Today at the UN, his mother and brother held a press briefing along with Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, the goal to push the international community to get him back home. From Ambassador Danon today, this statement.
The international community must do better. The UN must do better. The UN has an obligation to make sure that the Palestinians understand that holding these Israelis as prisoners is unacceptable. Let me be clear. Israel will not rest until all of our citizens return home.
Well, our correspondent Tal Heinrich was at the UN earlier today at that event, and she's going to talk to us now from our New York studio. Tal, I know you were there and you had the chance to speak to the brother, Ilan Mengistu. What did he have to say to you?
Well, first, they were warmly welcomed here in the United States. This was the first thing that he actually told me. And he hopes that meeting American politicians and international dignitaries, along with American Jewish leaders, will eventually help to bring Avera Mengistu, his brother, her son, the mother that you just saw standing there next to Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, to bring him back home. We should also remember that bringing Avera Mengistu back home will only be in conjunction with a deal to return the remains of 2 other IDF soldiers that were killed during the 2014 Israel-Gaza war, Hadar Goldin and Oron Shaul, and their families also made the journey to the U.S. to raise awareness. It was a year ago. So when I sat down and talked to Ilan Mengistu, brother of Avera, here's what he told me, that he hopes this journey to the U.S. that started in L.A., went through Washington, D.C., and ended up here in New York will yield.
We think the UN and international help need to bring him home. We're talking about humanitarian situation of utmost importance, and they need to do everything to bring him home.
Well, it's been more than 1,000 days, more than 3 years since they last saw Avera Mengistu. We should also remind the viewers that Avera Mengistu, he's a 31-year-old. He's coming from the margins of the Israeli society, from the Ethiopian community. He's coming from southern Israel. He lives in the periphery, not at the center, in the city of Ashkelon. And yes, he crossed into Gaza on his own, but he is a mentally disabled person. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Eventually, as the family says, his situation deteriorated following the death of his brother. So they don't know what made him walk down the beach in Ashkelon one day and just cross into adjacent Gaza. But they have many things to say to people that maybe try to compare between the situation of Gilad Shalit, this highly contested deal to release Gilad Shalit, as we remember from 2011, that brought to the release of about 1,000 security prisoners. So they have a lot of anger in them, the family, but it's not only aimed at the Israeli government. They urge them to do everything possible to bring to Avera's release, but not only the Israeli government. Let's take a listen.
It's not for us to say how the government should protect its soldiers and citizens. There needs to be more responsibility and commitment toward bringing him home. I think it's not just the responsibility of the State of Israel, but also the responsibility of everyone and anyone who is involved in humanitarian issues. There has to be partnership in bringing him home.
Tal, this isn't the first time that the families of those held in Gaza, dead or alive, have made their way to Washington or to New York asking for help. Did you get a sense that they have heard anything in response?
Well, what they want first, of course, they want to bring to his release. They want the international community to exert certain pressure on Hamas to bring to his release. I found something very powerful that Ilan Mengistu said at this press conference when he basically maybe told Hamas, my brother is an Israeli citizen, yes, but he didn't even serve the IDF. He didn't harm anyone. This is in Ilan's words. He didn't fight anyone. He didn't fight you. So I think he was maybe trying, maybe subconsciously, to to compare between the situation of an IDF soldier who has been held by Hamas captive for 5 years, and I'm once again referring to Gilad Shalit's situation, and just to make this difference that it's not the same situation here. And well, they met with a lot of dignitaries. They met with Jason Greenblatt, Trump's administration's special envoy to international negotiations, and they hope that this will bring to something, that they will press both the Israeli government and Hamas to do something, and if not to release Avera Mengistu, maybe to bring some piece of information about his whereabouts.
Tal, I watched the whole press conference, and I was struck of most of the questions asked by the press. They were about diplomatic developments, not really about the situation that they were there to attend with. I mean, do you get a sense that the international community, including our comrades in the media, are not giving this the kind of attention and coverage it needs?
I totally agree with you, Kalev, and I actually felt a bit ashamed maybe for the family standing there next to Ambassador Danny Danon, and all the questions were just about Israeli international issues, you know, news of the day, and the family was standing there not getting the attention they should have. But we, of course, we will air this full interview in the coming days with the Mengistu family, and maybe hopefully will raise awareness as the family would want to.